You open your phone and suddenly your life feels smaller. Someone is younger but richer. Someone is happier but you can't tell why. And even though you know it's just a screen, part of you still whispers, "Why not me?" We don't mean to compare, but we do, constantly, quietly, unconsciously. It happens in the most unexpected moments. You're scrolling through your feed at midnight and someone posts about their promotion. You feel something twist in your chest, not quite jealousy, not quite sadness, something harder to name. Or you're at a family gathering and someone asks about your plans, your relationship status, your career. And suddenly you're not just answering them, you're measuring yourself against everyone else in the room. So why does it feel like we're always being measured, even when no one's holding a ruler? Why does comparison feel less like a choice and more like breathing? And more importantly, what is this doing to us? Today we're diving deep into the psychology of constant comparison, why our brains are wired this way, what it's doing to our sense of self, and how we might finally find freedom from the invisible scoreboard we didn't even know we were playing on. Let's start with something most of us have heard before. Stop comparing yourself to others. It's well-meaning advice, it sounds right, but if you're anything like me, you've tried following it and found yourself right back where you started. Scrolling, wondering, measuring. Here's why that advice never really works. Comparison isn't a choice, it's ancient psychology. For thousands of years, our ancestors survived by understanding where they stood in their social groups. Status wasn't about ego, it was about survival. If you were valued by your tribe, you had access to resources, protection, and belonging. If you were cast out, you faced danger, isolation, maybe even death. So the brain evolved a very specific question. It asks, constantly, automatically, where do I stand? Not because you're insecure, not because you're shallow, but because for most of human history, knowing your social position kept you alive. This is where psychologist Leon Festinger comes in. In 1954, he introduced what's now called social comparison theory. His insight was simple but profound. We don't define who we are by looking inward, we define who we are by looking sideways. We measure ourselves against others to understand our abilities, our worth, our place in the world. It's how we figure out if we're doing okay, if we're normal, if we're enough. And here's the thing, this isn't weakness, this isn't vanity. This is how human beings have always made sense of themselves. The problem isn't that we compare. The problem is that the world we live in now has taken a survival mechanism and turned it into something relentless, something infinite, something we can't escape. So let's go deeper. What exactly is happening in your brain when you compare yourself to someone else? According to Festinger's theory, social comparison moves in two directions. First, there's upward comparison. This is when we look at people who seem to have more, be more, or achieve more than us. Someone with a better body, a more successful career, a seemingly perfect relationship. Upward comparison can inspire us. It can show us what's possible, but it can also breed envy, inadequacy, and that painful feeling of falling behind. Then there's downward comparison. This is when we look at people who are struggling more than we are. And yes, it sounds harsh, but we all do it. It's a way to soothe ourselves, to feel grateful, to reassure ourselves that we're not at the bottom. Downward comparison can give us perspective, but it can also turn into superiority, judgment, or a fragile sense of self-worth built on someone else's pain. Both directions serve the same function: emotional regulation. We're trying to feel better about ourselves by positioning ourselves on an invisible ladder we didn't even know we were playing on. Now let's talk about what happens chemically in your brain during this process. Social validation activates your brain's reward centers. When someone likes your post, when you get a compliment, when you achieve something publicly recognized, dopamine floods your system. You feel good, you feel seen, you feel valued. But here's the trap. That dopamine hit is temporary, and your brain remembers it. So you keep seeking it, you keep scrolling, you keep posting, you keep checking, not because you're addicted to your phone, but because you're addicted to the feeling of being enough. And when comparison goes the other way, when you see someone outpacing you, your brain registers it as a threat. Cortisol rises. You feel anxious, diminished, left behind. Your nervous system responds the same way it would to danger. This is why comparison feels so visceral. It's not just thoughts, it's biology. And over time, something even more insidious happens. When your identity depends on external ranking, your self-worth becomes unstable. You're not chasing success anymore, you're chasing relief from the feeling of being less than. That's the cycle, that's the trap. And once you're in it, it's hard to see a way out. It's not jealousy, it's insecurity disguised as curiosity. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt joy without wondering if it was enough. When was the last time you celebrated something without immediately thinking about who's ahead of you? Comparison used to be quiet, glances across classrooms, conversations at family dinners, observations at the office. It was limited by proximity. You could only compare yourself to the people you actually knew. But now it's infinite. Every scroll is a mirror reflecting what you're not. Every post is a highlight reel of someone else's best moment. And even though we know intellectually that social media is curated, that everyone struggles, that nobody's life is as perfect as it looks, knowing doesn't make it stop hurting. Because the emotional truth is this: constant comparison creates invisible pressure. Pressure to look better, to achieve faster, to live louder, to prove that your life is worth something. Even joy starts feeling performative. Success becomes a race, not a feeling. You stop asking, "Am I happy?" and start asking, "Does this look like happiness?" People begin curating identities for validation rather than connection. They share not what's real, but what will be liked. And slowly, subtly, the line between who they are and who they perform blurs until they can't tell the difference anymore. Here's the psychological nuance that really gets me. The mind begins to confuse visibility with value. If no one sees your achievement, does it count? If no one witnesses your pain, is it valid? External applause starts to replace inner peace. And you find yourself living for an audience that's never satisfied, because there's always someone doing it better, faster, louder. We stopped asking, "Am I growing?" and started asking, "Am I winning?" And the truth is, you can't win a game with no finish line. It's like running a marathon on a treadmill. Exhausting, endless, and somehow you never arrive. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's the paradox. Comparison isn't all bad. In fact, comparison can also be a teacher. Think about it. When you feel that pang of envy, what is it actually telling you? It's revealing what you value most. It's showing you what you desire, what you long for, what part of your life feels incomplete. That's not useless information. That's a compass. If you see someone traveling the world and you feel that ache, maybe it's not jealousy. Maybe it's a reminder that adventure matters to you, that you've been putting your dreams on hold, that there's a part of you that wants to be braver. Admiration, when used consciously, can guide us toward our potential. It can show us what's possible. It can inspire us to grow, to stretch, to reach for something bigger than we thought we could hold. But here's where the paradox deepens. Obsession with others' timelines kills gratitude and joy. When you're constantly measuring yourself against someone else's chapter 10 while you're still on chapter 3, you miss the beauty of where you actually are. You stop celebrating your progress because it never feels like enough. You stop feeling grateful for what you have because you're too focused on what you don't. Psychologically, constant upward comparison creates chronically low self-esteem. It keeps your nervous system in a state of deficit thinking. Always not enough, always behind, always lacking. And the cruelest part? The goalposts keep moving. You think, if I just achieve this, I'll feel secure. But then you achieve it and there's someone else who's achieved more. So the finish line moves again and again and again. You're not living your life, you're living in reaction to everyone else's. But here's what changes everything. Selective comparison with your past self fosters growth. Instead of asking, "Am I as successful as them?" ask, "Am I more capable than I was last year?" Instead of asking, "Why don't I have what they have?" ask, "What have I built that I'm proud of?" The problem isn't that we compare. It's that we compare in the wrong direction. We use others as compasses when we should be using them as mirrors. Not to see ourselves in them, but to see ourselves more clearly. Instead of using others as compasses, we've turned them into cages. So how do you stop living by invisible scoreboards? How do you break free from the comparison trap without pretending it doesn't exist? It starts with awareness. Simple, honest awareness. Notice when comparison hijacks gratitude. You're having a good day, and then you see a post, and suddenly your good day feels ordinary. Notice that shift. Don't judge it. Just see it. Because once you see it, you can choose differently. Here's a practice that changed my life. Replace upward comparison with inward reflection. When you catch yourself measuring your worth against someone else, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What need is this comparison trying to meet? Maybe you're feeling inadequate. Maybe you're feeling behind. Maybe you're feeling invisible. Name it, honor it, and then ask, what do I need that's actually within my control? Because the truth is, your timeline isn't late. It's yours. Someone else's success doesn't steal from your potential. Their light doesn't dim yours. There's no cosmic quota where only a certain number of people get to thrive, but you have to choose to believe that every single day. Another shift, move from competition to connection. When you see someone doing something amazing, instead of spiraling into, why not me, try, what can I learn from them? What does their journey teach me about what's possible? Curiosity replaces envy. Inspiration replaces inadequacy. Now let's talk about psychological healing on a deeper level. Build self-coherence. This means defining your worth internally, not relationally. Your value doesn't come from being better than someone else. It comes from living in alignment with your own values, your own goals, your own definition of a life well lived. Limit exposure to constant metrics. Yes, this might mean a social media detox, or curating your feed more intentionally, or setting boundaries around when and how you consume content, because you can't heal from comparison while drowning in it. And here's the most powerful practice of all. Celebrate small, private wins. The kind no one claps for but you. You had a hard conversation and handled it with grace. You kept a promise to yourself. You showed up for someone who needed you. You learned something new. You rested when you needed to. These are victories. They matter. They count, even if no one ever knows. Because peace isn't found in winning. It's found in not needing to compete. And if this video is resonating with you, if you're recognizing patterns you want to change, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about exploring the deeper psychology of what it means to be human, what it means to heal, what it means to find peace in a world that constantly tells us we're not enough. New videos every week. Let's keep going on this journey together. So let me leave you with this. Maybe comparison was never the enemy. Maybe it was just a mirror asking who you want to be, a signal pointing toward what matters to you, a reminder that you're still reaching, still growing, still becoming. But at some point, you have to stop measuring and start living. Because here's what I know for certain. Someone will always have more. More beauty, more success, more followers, more money, more something. The race never ends. The ladder has no top rung. The finish line keeps moving. But no one will ever have your rhythm, your scars, your story, the particular way you see the world, the specific impact you make on the people who know you, the quiet, unglamorous, beautiful ways you show up every single day. And the day you stop comparing is not the day you stop caring. It's not the day you stop growing or striving or dreaming. It's the day you remember that you were never in a race to begin with. You're on your own path, your own timeline, your own journey. And that's not a consolation prize. That's the whole point. So maybe today, just for today, you put down the measuring tape. You stop scrolling. You stop comparing. You just breathe and remember, you are not behind. You are not less than. You are not running out of time. You are exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn, becoming who you're meant to become, and that is more than enough. If this message landed for you, leave a comment below. Tell me, what's one comparison you're ready to let go of? What's one way you're choosing to define success on your own terms? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share this video with them. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is remind each other that we're not alone in this struggle. Thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to see yourself with a little more compassion today. I'll see you in the next one.